In this video, I wanted to discuss the topic of self-mastery, enlightenment, illumination, ascension, self-realization, God realization. These terms are all interchangeably used to describe a particular level of consciousness that we as humans are able to attain. Now, unfortunately, these terms are in many ways misused and misrepresented as well. And so that's the reason why I want to provide some clarification. And the terminology that is misused the most is self-mastery or mastery. There are many people out there that are claiming to be masters or that they have attained self-mastery, and they have not. They may have attained mastery in certain areas of their lives, but they are not illuminated, they are not enlightened, they are not masters as in the true sense of what mastery is. And they have not ascended or any other or realized themselves or become God realized. Okay? So I want to clarify these terms because it's important. It's really, really important because the beings that have attained true mastery are few and far between on this planet. And those people fall into the category of Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad as being the most well-known ones in the more religious type circles. But we do have people like Amachi and Vishwananda and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and Guruji, who's well known right now in the social media and YouTube type circles. These are true masters. These are people that have attained true self-mastery. And there are many others as well, but they are far fewer than what we actually truly believe. Now that is changing, and there is the potential to change as humanity awakens and as the vibration of the planet keeps increasing and ascending into greater love. But let me describe how my spiritual master, my guru that I trained with, he was my primary teacher for a long time, how he explained it, because this will shed some light. But you've got to understand that in this day and age, everyone is claiming all sorts of things. Everyone's claiming to be a coach, or everyone's claiming to be a spiritual master or a spiritual teacher. Everyone's claiming to be a lot of things, and all they've actually done is read a few books or maybe done a few online courses. And that is not where mastery comes from. Mastery comes from fully embodying those teachings or those concepts and truly being a master in that field. I know people that are opening up ashrams, and an ashram by its very nature is a spiritual school under the auspices of an enlightened being, of a true spiritual master. And it's a Sanskrit term that's used a lot in India, which happens to be the land of gurus and spiritual masters. And the reason for that is because they didn't lose a lot of their traditions. They're one of the few countries that have managed to maintain a lot of their ancient traditions. And so that is one of the reasons why they've been able to have so many spiritual masters and very high conscious yogis and beings. Yet if you look at that country, the extremes are crazy. You've got these very, very high level spiritual beings and yogis and so forth. Yet at the same time, the poverty level and the majority of the country is barely scraping by, barely living and eking out a life for themselves. And it's a fascinating country, a very, very wide gap in all the extremes. Now that's changing a lot more because the West outsourced everything to India in order to cut costs and in order for the West to maintain its capitalistic edge in making profits. So anyway, I sort of digressed a little bit there, but let's talk about enlightenment and let's talk about true self-mastery, okay? Because I'm not denying that people haven't attained mastery in certain areas of their lives. Maybe it's in business, maybe it's in neuroscience, maybe it's in meditation, maybe it's in yoga, maybe it's in writing books and authoring books, maybe it's in online marketing, okay, or in cooking, okay, but that doesn't mean that they have attained self-mastery. Self-mastery or enlightenment or ascension are synonymous with one another, and they have a very specific meaning, and it's a very specific level of consciousness that is available and attainable by every single human being on the planet, though it is very difficult to attain because it requires a lot, okay? It requires a lot of work. It requires a surrendering. It requires a level of detachment. It requires a level of transformation inside that is against the very nature of this third dimensional / fourth dimensional reality that we currently live in, which is a reality that is founded on and based on separation. And the reason why this reality is founded on and based on separation is because that's what makes the human experience real. It's what makes the human experience be the experience that it needs to be, so that as souls incarnating and as humans on this planet, we can learn the lessons that we need to learn. We can figure out and work out all the karma and all the circumstances and situations that we need to transmute and transform that will help us raise our vibrations, help us reunify and reconnect with the true essence of who we truly are and who we were born to be. It's an experiment. It's an experience. That's why we're here. It's to just have experiences. So, because all of creation is all one, everything is interconnected. Okay, these are the ultimate truths of spirituality, of reality. It's not even spiritual. You know, it's sort of a shame that spirituality gets lumped into this its own container, its own box of teachings, and that it's separated from the sciences and what most people or the majority consider real. But it's not. Everything is actually spiritual. Everything is spiritual. All life is spiritual. And as the sciences incorporate more of spirituality, and as the sciences expand out of the material and the physical world, the more that they're discovering and the more that they are quantifying and the more that they're proving that all the spiritual concepts and the ancient wisdom that has been handed down for millennia is actually true. And that's how quantum physics and quantum mechanics and metaphysics and epigenetics and all of these other sciences have all come about. And science has now started to prove that we do actually create our own reality, that everything is consciousness and everything is interconnected and everything is one. That's now scientific fact, even though the mainstream is still struggling with how to define that, because they don't just label it as, they don't label the quantum field as just God, or that the quantum field is just love, or the quantum field is the oneness. And they don't take it to the ultimate truth that you are the quantum field. You are an aspect of the quantum field. Everything is one. Everything is one. That's why psychic abilities exist. That's the reason why people have the supernatural experiences. And that's the reason why manifestation can work under certain conditions. Because you are one with everything. And 100% of you is energy. Just like 100% of all of creation is energy, is consciousness. And if you call it God, then you're 100% God. And that's where the term God realization comes from, or self-realization. Same thing. Enlightenment. It's being illumined. It's breaking out of the separate consciousness, which is restricted and limited because you're separate. You're cut off from the all that is. So, my spiritual teacher, my guru, the one that I trained with the most, the way he described self-mastery, enlightenment, etc., he described it as if you think of a scale of 0 to 100%, okay? And the scale and the 50% mark is the middle, right? And that humanity and separation is from 0 to 50%, okay? Which is fear-based, okay? Separation is a fear-based consciousness, okay? And above the 50% is love-based consciousness. So if you think about it, whatever percentage of your consciousness is truly living from a place of unconditional love, cellularly and fully realized, right? You're on that scale of 0 to 100% of unconditional love. So all that happens is that when you hit that 51% of your collective consciousness, your total consciousness is of unconditional love. Again, truly, fully realized. Okay, not a concept, not, repressing all of your emotions and then pretending that you're loving and convincing yourself that you've arrived. Okay, when you hit that 51%, then what happens is that your consciousness, the gravitational pull of your consciousness is now not separation and fear, it's love. Okay, so if the bottom down here is fear and you're at 25%, then you're constantly, having experiences of love and bliss and happiness, but the gravitational pull is pulling you back into separation and back into the illusion and back into fear and non-love and all of that. Okay, because the majority of your consciousness is still in fear or in a fear-based consciousness. But when the majority of your consciousness now flips into love, again, fully realized, and the real thing, you can't fake it. It's not able to be faked, right? Then your consciousness flips, and now the gravitational pull pulls you into love. So you're more than 50% of the time, you're in true unconditional love, like unconditional love. And you have moments of fear, moments of anger, moments of this. But the gravitational pull keeps pulling you back into the truth, into love. But that flipping of your consciousness is what's called enlightenment. It's what's called self-mastery. It's what's called illumination, God realization, self-realization, ascension. And that's what Jesus, it's what Buddha, it's what Muhammad, it's what a lot of other true masters have realized. But it's been so few and far between over the history of humanity that there have been those sort of illumined beings on this planet, because this planet has been in a third dimensional reality, and that third dimensional reality has been very, very dense. And so it's extremely difficult to pull oneself out of that and to rise above it, right? And that's why the people like Jesus and these different masters and true masters and saints and illumined beings would go into training for decades or lifetimes before they would attain mastery. Some would embody, okay, because they would have come from other realms where they had already done a lot of work on themselves, and they will have embodied with an advantage over other people, but they still had to claw and work their way through into self-mastery. And if you actually read the history of some of these, or the lives of some of these true masters, you will discover that they went through many, many trials and tribulations and initiations and went through very intense training in order to facilitate the transformation that needs to happen in order to truly attain that level of consciousness. However, if you think about the example that I just said, when you attain that level of consciousness, you've only just gotten past the 50-yard line. You're only just past the 51%. So there's still evolution and growth in that scale. And the truth is that evolution and growth is infinite, because there's infinite amount of experiences to be had on this planet. There's an infinite amount of love to grow into, because love and God and creation is infinite. So you can never actually really ever fully attain 100%. By the time you attain 100%, you would actually be still growing more, and you'd probably be off planet, because there's only so much vibration and love that one can hold before you literally dematerialize and you'd have to leave the planet. But you see, the Western culture has marketed and bastardized certain teachings and certain concepts and certain trainings and processes and so forth in order to, as I said, in order to capitalize on it. And everybody wants to capitalize on it. Everybody wants to create and add their spin on things. And look, there's nothing wrong with it if it's coming from the right place, and if it's truly helping individuals and teaching individuals and helping them with their processes. But there's a huge danger in it too, because a lot of it is not. A lot of it is misguided. A lot of it is teaching people things, and people are getting locked into belief systems that are ultimately limiting and that are ultimately constricting, and that will not allow them to move beyond a certain level of attainment and accomplishment. So the hopes is that as people evolve and grow, they will find the truth, and they will expand and find what's actually real at the end of the day. And that's the reason why everything I teach is about empowering the individual and asking that everybody go within and find the truth within you. Because there's no greater accomplishment than to work on the self. There is no greater achievement. There is no other way to attain self-mastery. I know spiritual masters, people that call themselves spiritual masters, or they call themselves masters, that don't even meditate, that have barely even done the real self-work. Because to be quite honest, most of humanity is barely scratching the surface. And most of humanity resists going inwards and facing the trauma, facing the non-love, and facing all the conditioning and the programming that we have taken on that wasn't even our own. It was all introduced to us. And if you've watched my videos, you'll hear that there's certain themes that I keep bringing up. And it's because it's just the truth. I trained for 25 to 30 years. I traveled the world. I've worked with shamans. I've worked with healers. I've worked with scientists. I've worked with practitioners. I've worked with all sorts of different people. A lot of the times as the student, the patient, because I was screwed up and messed up just like everybody else. And that's actually my superpower, right? It's all of our superpowers, all the craziness and all the hurt and the pain and the suffering that we've endured being on this planet is our greatest superpower when and if we choose to overcome it and master all of those situations and circumstances and get all the non-love out so that you can raise your vibration and hold more and more of that love, that unconditional love inside of yourself, for yourself and for everybody and everything in all of creation. And then once your consciousness truly hits that 50% mark, boom, you'll attain enlightenment. But that's just the beginning of the next phase of your unfoldment. You know, a lot of the misinformation out there, in some cases, is actually quite innocent, because we've got the blind leading the blind. As an example, you will never ever hear a true spiritual master, right? You will never ever hear a true spiritual master teaching people how to manifest, and how to manifest money in particular. Ever. Ever. Never. Why? Because money's an illusion. I'm not saying that they won't talk or address questions that people might ask them about money, but they don't teach anything about how do you manifest this, or how do you manifest $1 million, or how do you manifest money. The reason why is because money is the illusion. Money is not real. Just like wanting to live in a 10,000 square foot mansion. How does that benefit creation? How does that benefit humanity? How does that help transform the lives of millions of people? And why does someone need a 10,000 square foot mansion? Unless, of course, they're going to build an orphanage, right? And I'm using that as a metaphor, so I don't mean to knock anyone that does own a 10,000 square foot mansion, because some people might legitimately feel called to, and it might be something that they truly need. But I'm talking about at the highest level of creation and of consciousness. That's all part of the illusion. True spiritual masters, if you hear them talk and you hear their teachings, everything is simplified. Very, very simple. Because love, unconditional love, is simple. You know, in any given moment, you're either choosing love or you're choosing non-love. 50-50% chance of getting it right. Now, yes, within the spectrum of loving choices versus non-loving choices, there are infinite possibilities. But when you're in tune with who you truly are and who you were born to be, and your divinity and your divine self, your God self, your superconscious, your I am presence, your soul, right? Then you're guided. And then you don't care about the Gucci bags. You don't care about the 10,000 square foot mansion. You don't care about, you're not attached. You don't care. It's because it's not about vanity. It's not about look at me anymore. And if you do have it, you're not going around bragging to everyone. And in some ways, yeah, I'm sort of knocking that to a certain degree, but it's more because people need to wake up to their agendas. People need to wake up to what's actually truly motivating them. There's a reason why a lot of spiritual masters reject the world, or rejected the world, the material world, when they went into training, because that sensory deprivation and all the distraction and all the noise, right, is the problem. It's a distraction. And that's the reason why meditation is so important, because very few people take the time to silence all this, to realize all this. And what's in here is all of creation. The access to the quantum field, your access to God, your access to your divinity, your access to truth and infinite wisdom. And when this relationship grows and grows, and you raise your vibration and you call in more and more love, a lot of people pursue spirituality in order to get what they want. And so they'll assign all these egoic pursuits, but now they're spiritual. But it's the same thing. It's the same side of the opposite coin. True detachment is detachment. Like, you are not attached to anything. You could be scrubbing toilets for the rest of your life, and you will feel exactly the same on the inside as if you had all the money in the entire world and you were world famous and everyone knew who you were. The experience on the inside is exactly the same. That is mastery. That is unconditional love. Love without conditions. That's huge. So that getting to that 51%, right, where the majority of your consciousness, meaning your whole entire earthly existence, is truly living in that state of unconditional love, which includes detachment, surrender, trust, faith, all of those traits. None of the traits of unconditional love has assigns any value to the material world at all. Because the material world, the physical world that we live in, is just a vehicle to realize who you truly are and who you were born to be, and to hopefully learn the lessons that you need to learn so that you can actually break free of the illusion. And once you've broken free of the illusion, as I said, none of that matters. You're now in the flow. God / the universe is now yours. You can literally manipulate your reality. But when I say that, it's not a conscious manipulation. It's not actually really manipulation. It's a surrender. Things happen and manifest. And you're in such a level of trust that you don't need to be projecting and focusing on what it is that you want, because you have no wants. You already have everything. And I know that these concepts can sometimes sound very woo-woo, but it's actually not. It's not when you're in the experience of it. It's not when it's unfolding and playing out in your life and all the miracles and blessings and synchronicities and everything are happening more and accelerating and you are truly in the flow and being guided through life. And no matter what happens in the physical world, you're not affected by it. You can just stay in that place of true mastery. I really didn't expect this video to go so long and to go so in depth into some of these concepts, because usually, I try and break up my videos into shorter pieces. I really just wanted to touch on what true self-mastery is and true enlightenment is. But these are so important concepts to understand if you truly want to go beyond anything that you possibly can and to truly live as a superhuman. That is what fifth dimensional consciousness is. And that's what this earth is evolving into. And if you check out some of my other videos, you'll learn more about some of these different concepts. But my number one goal for every single person is to help them go within and start creating that relationship with self, and to start removing all the limitations and all the things that are holding them back and preventing them from experiencing what I'm talking about. And the more that you do the work, the longer and longer that you'll be able to stay in a peaceful state. the longer and longer that you'll be able to, and the more and more that you'll be able to start creating the reality and the life that you deserve to live and that you were born to live. And the more peace that you will feel inside, there will be no such thing as anxiety and depression and all of that. It doesn't mean that things don't happen to you, but that's the ideal, right? That's the ideal, and that takes time. But the process of getting to that point requires going into the depths of hell. It requires accessing pain and hurt and stuff that's inside that needs to come out and needs to be expressed, because it's not yours to hold onto in the first place. No one deserves anything but unconditional love. But we've held on to it, and it got trapped, and we were exposed to it, and we did the best we could to cope with it. But it was all introduced into us. But our natural state is unconditional love, because it's who we truly are. So anything not of that needs to be let go of. And a lot of people are so shut down, not due to any fault of theirs. It's a protection. It was a protection mechanism. So a lot of people don't even know what they don't know. I don't even know the level of depth of stuff that is inside of them, that's ailing them, that's causing the pain and suffering, that's causing the anxiety and depression, that's causing the misery in their lives or the difficulties in their lives. But the one thing that's true, the more love that you pull in to your body, right, to raise your vibration, to get closer to enlightenment, whenever that happens, the non-love has to come out of your body in order to accommodate that. All of those lower frequency, lower vibrational things in your body have to come up and out. And they can only come up and out by being expressed. And most of that gets expressed through the emotional body, not through the mental, but the emotional. I was in India, I think it was in 2002. It was 2002. I was in India, one of the many times that I went to India, and I've traveled all over the place. And I was at Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's ashram, and he's got the Art of Living Foundation, and he's one of the great teachers out there. And there was a satsang going on. He was up on stage, sitting in his chair, and there's thousands of people, or hundreds of people, Westerners and Indians and people from all over the world. And he was answering questions. And one person asked this question and asked, what's the fastest way to attain enlightenment or self-mastery? I don't remember the exact word that the person used, but it was like, what's the fastest way? And his answer, he laughed, he chuckled, and he said, cry your way into enlightenment. That's the fastest way. And that has always stuck with me, because in this world of repression and suppression and addiction, you look at all of that, it's all about repressing the emotions. But he said, that's the fastest way. And having lived in ashrams and having traveled the world, I can truly say that the real work, the real healing that takes place is through feeling. And that's the reason why I spend so much time talking about the emotional body, because I really want to impart and help people to give themselves permission to feel what's inside. And as they raise their vibration and they do the meditation practices and start working with and connecting with their higher selves and their superconscious selves, their I am presence, their God selves, the quantum field, through the different processes that I teach and that I show people, stuff is going to come up. I'm not going to lie. It's not always going to be easy. And that's why you need a support group. You need people that are like-minded, because when that stuff comes up, it can be tough, it can be difficult. But the beautiful thing is that when you are able to let it go and you're able to just dive right into the stuff that needs that level of emotional expression, you become transformed, and the healing is permanent. But sometimes it's layer by layer. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that I provided some clarity. Again, I don't wish to criticize and to come across as judging different teachers that are out there. I very deliberately try to not mention names and anything, but just mention concepts, because they're doing what they're doing, and sometimes their intentions are beautiful and wonderful. It's just out of naivety. It's out of a lack of understanding, and that's okay. Lesser students draw lesser teachers, so to speak. A water seeks its own level, and it's not about being better than or worse than. We all need to take the baby steps anyway. It wasn't like I found my spiritual master or my guru and I just, woke up one day and I was in an ashram. No, I went to a lot of other different teachers and, went through healings and had amazing, crazy experiences and sometimes very dark experiences until I fumbled my way. And because I had the true intention, the true intention to heal myself and to work on myself and to understand why this world is the way that it is, I eventually found that. And when you understand that growth and healing and all of that is infinite, never ending, then you learn to embrace that and know that whatever you're going through, whatever level of healing, whatever level of pain, that there is an end to it, and that things do get easier. And, when you create the miracles and you create the synchronicities and the blessings, and you start seeing how the world around you morphs, and then in some ways you're walking around with this bubble of love, this bubble of protection, as a result of the work that you're doing. OMG. But it keeps you going, because anyone that says that they've arrived probably hasn't, because there's no such thing.